When I was coming up with ideas for this channel, I did a bit of Googling and I instantly knew I wanted to forge steel. There's something that seems so magical and so fantasy about turning a hard piece of metal into a soft, sparkly, doughy material that you can make into anything. It seems like blacksmiths have some sort of magical power. So I wanted to find out if they are mere mortals or are they really wizards. So I headed to Rathobyre's forge near Edinburgh to work with this woman, Shona Johnson. Definitely a wizard. Okay, but apart from wizarding, Shona is an artist blacksmith, which means she makes some of the most beautiful sculptural and functional pieces of artwork, and some of these artworks have been pretty weird and wonderful.
The weirdest thing that I've had to make, I think, was actually a piece of work for another artist. This artist had got a meteorite which had landed on Earth, which is a form of metal, and in a way, if you go way back in history, that is what the very first blacksmiths were using, meteorites. So we had to forge them into a bar of metal and then create a horseshoe out of that. So that really is the weirdest thing I think that I have ever had to forge.
Shona was going to teach me how to make a candlestick out of steel that has not been to space, unfortunately. But first of all, we had to start with the basics, hitting the metal with a hammer, which is much harder than it looks, and I wasn't too accurate to start.
You kind of want to hold the hammer towards the end, so that you're not choking out the weight of it. It's actually a wrist action as well.
Yeah.
Get the feel of that?
Yeah, I think so.
So we're heating the steel up to about 1800 degrees. So it's very hot. Do not touch it.
Yeah.
Heat coming off it.
So hot.
So we're just taking the heat out, cooling the metal down, so that we're just keeping our heat in that one place. Yeah, you do hit it.
When I had kind of mastered hitting, sure. Then I got to move on to the power hammer.
And you'll see the difference when you use these guys here. It's terrifying. I am using a power hammer. About to.
How is it best?
It's good. It's exciting. I'm not very delicate with it yet. I'm like,
Now, as you can imagine, running a giant fire isn't the most eco-friendly, but Rathobyre's forge have a more eco-friendly solution to heating up the metal, a solar-powered induction heater.
it's a magnetic field which is sort of sent round here. It's a bit of wizardry.
See, she even admitted she's a wizard. The induction heater works just like an induction cooker. Electric currents are passed through the coil, making an oscillating magnetic field. Currents are then passed into the bar of metal, which, because of resistance in the metal, gets converted into kinetic energy, wiggling atoms, heat. This is really good for a blacksmith because it's faster and it's more precise and it's really efficient.
It's incredibly quick.
With a normal gas fire, only up to 15% of the energy put in is transferred into heat in the metal. With induction heaters, it's up to 60%, which makes it better for the environment, especially if it's hooked up to solar panels like at Rathobyre's forge. And it's really cool to think that my candlestick was going to be forged with the energy of the sun. I love that idea.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Now, once I knew the basics, I was ready to get making. First, I hammered the end of my steel rod into a tapered end. Who knew that would take quite so long? Next, I used the power hammer to make the top end long and flat. I had to make sure I got it just the right length to be able to wrap around the candle. And of course, Shona absolutely did not come in and fix any of my mistakes.
I became a blacksmith really by chance. I originally studied agriculture. I worked on farms. I was working with my hands, and my dad and my grandfather were both blacksmiths, and I kind of came into the forge just as a sort of step from agriculture onto something else I might move on to, and I just actually fell in love with it. I fell in love with the plasticity of the material and also the people. The blacksmithing family, we all are very, very open at sharing, and if any of us sort of find a new way of doing something and someone asks about it, we will freely give our knowledge, because we know that knowledge will come back.
Next, we started on the base. I had to upset the material, which means kind of push the metal back in on itself to make a kind of bulbous end. Next, we used the hammer to move that upset material into a nice fishtail shape. We flattened out the base of the steel rod. Then we heated up the centre of the rod and squared it off so it could become the centre of the candlestick. The next bit was really fun. We were going to curl the top of the candlestick around to make the candlestick holder. Shona used a blowtorch to heat up a tiny section so we could bend the rod and start the curl. Then she let me loose with the blowtorch. The top was complete, but we still had to make the base. So Shona used a tool to cut a dent into the rod, and I bent it into a right angle. We then bent it around a shape that Shona had made previously in the workshop. After that, we polished it up with wax, and I was absolutely knackered, but I have to admit, I was quite pleased with the result. I was chatting to Shona, and she was telling me her favourite things about blacksmithing, and she said something really lovely.
Everything that we do, certainly here at Rathbars Forge, is a one-off. We've never done it before, and we'll never do it again. We're creating something which is unique for a space or a person or a community, and I think that and the blacksmithing is what I enjoy the most. The stories, the storytelling in metal, and leaving the tale behind. If I've done a piece of public artwork, is leaving that story with the community, and it becomes their story, and therefore it becomes their piece of work.
I thought that was really lovely. All the pieces at Rathbars Forge are made with such love and care, and that totally comes across in their uniqueness and quality. And it got me thinking about the stories of objects in a way that I've never thought about them before. So much in our world is made quickly and cheaply and ready to be thrown out for the next cheap thing, but these candlesticks, to me, weren't just the candlesticks, but now they are the story of the wonderful day I spent at Rathbars Forge. When I see them, I tell myself the story that I'm capable, and that's a really good story for me to have in my house. And it's not just about making things, it's about the things we buy. So for example, you might buy something sustainable, and that doesn't just help the environment, but by having that thing in your house, you're telling yourself the story that you're a person who helps. It's double helping. I never really thought about the intention of purchases in this way before, and all this came out of a pair of candlesticks and a really great story. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like and subscribe. If you have any more ideas for challenges, I'd love to hear them. I want to try lots of different things. I've got lots of things in mind, but I'd love your ideas too. Once again, a big thanks to the patrons. If it wasn't for the patrons, these videos would not happen. So go check out Patreon, patreon.com/BethRoars. And thank you again. See you in the next one. Bye.